this is not a competition. You don't have to be as good at them at everything. And they like that. Anyone you're dating likes to be able to show what they're good at or excited about, and for you to engage in that excitement, feel that joy and feel that enthusiasm. How to fall in love. The stages.
We're going to talk about the stages of falling in love. Fascinating. I'm going to start off by asking, how many dates per week should you be doing with a guy that you are interested in? You've met, you've had one date, it all went very well. So what should be in your diary?
Okay, so relationship, dating, stage 1. So you've already met the person and you're starting to embark on this exciting journey together. At the very beginning, we're not going to be having sex until we've got to know them better, until we can make a judicious decision about them, until we know that they're right for us. So in order to get there, we need to be seeing this person quite intensively. It's not always possible. If you've got young kids, you've got to pay for babysitters, you've got a full-on job. It can be tricky to find the time, but you have to make the time. At the very beginning, I am hoping that if you've met someone that you are considering being in a committed relationship with, you're going to be seeing them, hopefully, 3 times a week. That sounds a lot, but if you're committed to a hobby, if you're a gym goer, if you are already into your tennis or your golf or swimming, whatever you do, you probably already do that a number of times a week, and you're just slotting someone else in, which is a very clinical way of saying it, but you've got to make the time if you want to be in a relationship.
And when we say per week, that's including weekends as well. I know we're working at dating, but you should be seeing somebody over the course of a weekend.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the really interesting things that I read about a lot, or I obviously get asked a lot of questions, so I'm reading through all of these questions that I receive, and a very common one is, or common, maybe taking it a bit too far, but one that I do receive not infrequently is, I'm dating someone, but I don't see them at the weekends. They've got hobbies, they have other things going on, so I'm not able to meet up at weekends. What do you think about this? Should I address it? Is it a big deal? That person is married and you just don't know it yet. That is what's going on there. And by saying this now, hopefully that will reduce the number of people that ask me that question. When it comes to dating, yeah, of course, it should be, weekends definitely should form a big part of you building some momentum and building a relationship. It's the perfect time to meet up with someone who you're hoping is going to be someone that you end up in a relationship with, or who you're just exploring with. When you're dating, there is no commitment at the beginning. That's the brilliant thing about it. A lot of people are fearful of going on a date because they're worried about, what if I don't like them and I have to turn them down? I'm worried that I'm going to upset or disappoint someone. The whole brilliant thing about dating is going out with someone that you didn't know before. It may have been a friend, but going out with someone you didn't know before to see if you can explore a relationship together. It's a zero commitment exercise until the point that you both decide it's right for you. But at the beginning, absolutely, you need to be going for dinners, walks, you need to be going to galleries, you need to try and not just sit in a pub, sit in a restaurant, sit in a bar. Try and do things together. It gives you a better sense of who they are. How do they deal with things when the taxi driver is rude? How do they deal with things when people are bumping into them in a busy gallery? How do they cope in different situations? But also, it allows you to show off a little bit, show some of your knowledge about art or history. And also, really importantly, whether you're a man or a woman, let the other person have a chance to show off. Let them have a chance to glow with their knowledge. And if you don't know about something, you quite often when you're dating, you worry, I don't know enough about this particular area that they know a lot about. But it allows the other person to shine. This is not a competition. You don't have to be as good at them at everything. And they like that. Anyone you're dating likes to be able to show what they're good at or excited about, and for you to engage in that excitement and feel that joy and feel that enthusiasm. You must have had that too, Carol. I can see you smile. You've had this before, where you've allowed yourself to have that level of enthusiasm for someone else and their interests, whether it's, classic cars or fishing. You might not want to do it yourself, but there's nothing more they like than you just say, show me another picture of that salmon that you did a bit of catch and release with. I can't imagine anything. £10, you say? Do you have another angle of this fish? What do you think about, Carol? Have you found yourself in those situations?
No, I tell you what I was thinking of. What I really love are the sort of changes in tempos. So if you are seeing, you've met somebody, you date during the week, and it's a restaurant or a film or a this or a that. I think having a first Sunday together is something really lovely, because it's that change of tempo, and suddenly you might be, wearing your kind of cozy, comfy clothes. You're going to be going for a walk, taking the dog out, maybe going to their house for the first time, which is also quite interesting. Is the house or apartment what you're expecting? Is it a man cave? Is it somewhere where they've recently been living with somebody else? Is it tidy? Have they made an effort? All those things are really fascinating to discover, and also can change how you feel about somebody.
Completely. And we're not allowed to talk about COVID anymore. It's a taboo topic. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. But during COVID, because of course, as a matchmaker, I thought COVID started. We can't meet. We can't see someone outside. This is the end. Matchmaking is going to be over during COVID. We have never been busier. And the fabulous thing about that period of time, the only upside, it was horrendous, terrible, dreadful. But when it came to dating, there was a plus side. And that plus side was people were Zoom dating for the first date. You didn't know the person. They weren't a member of your family. You went on Zoom. And this gave you an immediate insight into someone's home life, how they lived. And, some of us are very good at thinking about background or height of camera or what do I wear. A lot of people weren't. And even though my job as a matchmaker, my job as a date coach is to give that kind of knowledge and share a bit of wisdom on how to do things and how to present yourself, some people didn't fully manage to embrace it. But even better, the ones that did, the other person would sometimes say, oh, give us a tour of your house. Oh, give us a tour of your flat. And so you couldn't just shove all the stuff to one side and do the call. You had to actually either think on your feet as to why that wasn't going to be possible, or say, yeah, not a problem. Let me show you around. So you had to kind of be slightly pre-warned that you might end up in a situation where you could have hold the camera over the kind of the pile on the way past to something else. But it did give you an insight. So I think it's interesting though. Do you judge a person based on the state of their home? And there's a very wonderful woman called Anne on TikTok, and she is very bright, very capable, full of common sense. She is, she's extraordinary. And Anne is, it sounds like I'm going off a tangent. I slightly am, but wait till I tell you this. Anne, who is a cleaner, she's also clearly quite an aristocratic family. And she said the only thing that a clean home tells you about someone is that their home has been cleaned. So the point she was making, the home could have been cleaned by a mother, a father, a brother, a professional cleaner. It doesn't mean that you've got good mental health. It doesn't mean that you'll be a good date. All it tells you is that someone has cleaned the home. And I think when you view it that way, and she's a very smart lady, when you view it that way, it keeps it very simple. Equally, when I have a client who comes to me and says, my partner must love dinner parties, opera, theatre, and you know that the person you're introducing likes those things. And when they go on a date, they say, "Oh, yes, but I haven't done that in the last 2 years." And the client said, "Well, you sent me on a date with someone who, you said that they love theatre and opera. They've not done it." I say, "Yes, because they've been single." And single people don't necessarily want to throw a dinner party, don't necessarily want to buy one ticket to the opera and go and sit in it. Some people thrive in that. I can't imagine anything better than sitting in my own and having an evening to myself. That sounds like luxury, a bit like lying in the bath with a glass of wine. Sounds perfection. But for some people, that is not what they want to do on their own. And so equally with the house, it comes back to what you're saying about the house. People live the way that they're living because of the situation they're currently in. There's not always huge amounts of preparation for, I'm going to build and design a life that's ready for a partner. We should, and we did do a podcast on how to ready your life for a partner, but not everyone is doing that. And just because someone lives in a slightly messy flat or a slightly messy house, or you're not entirely sure when the sheets last got cleaned, doesn't mean that you get a horrified look in your face, doesn't mean that that's how they would live in a relationship. It's very easy when you're single to become a little bit complacent. You're not doing it for anyone else. Some things that would have been vitally important in the past become less important. Never turn someone down because you don't like the place that they're living in. I mean, Elon Musk doesn't own a home, and he apparently sleeps in friends' bedroom floors, friends' couches, and the floor of his building. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have the wherewithal to purchase as many homes as he wants. That's just how he chooses to live his life. But I'm pretty sure a woman could, rope him into actually getting himself settled and sorted. You're looking horrified at me, Carole.
You managed to have some children, has he been kind of fornicating on his friend's sofa?
Oh, the visuals. I'm a visual thinker, Carole. That's not what I want.
Well, at least he can afford a hotel room. So let's just assume that it happened in hotel rooms.
Well, yeah.
In a penis house. Anyway,
well, all allegedly. I should say.
So you use the word commitment. Then, do we have does one have a conversation with somebody about whether? I kind of assume that once you have slept with somebody, there is a natural assumption that there is a commitment there. Is that not fair to say?
I love that you've just said that, because what you have just said is by far and away one of the most common conversations that I have with people and responses I have. Now I've slept with them, presumably there's a commitment. And this is one of the most dangerous things you can do in dating. If you sleep with someone anticipating, and as I say, as you've said, is exactly what we are here. If you sleep with someone anticipating commitment, you've got the cart before the horse. You've got it the whole wrong way round. Because the time you are least likely, if you do not have commitment prior to sleeping with someone, chances are you're not going to get it afterwards. You need to get the commitment before you jump into bed with someone. If you do not feel comfortable asking someone if they're happy to use a condom, if you do not feel comfortable asking someone about whether or not they're up to date with STD checks, if you do not feel comfortable asking someone, are we in a committed relationship, you should not be having sex with them.
Very good. Very good guidance. Thank you very much. My face is not doing anything.
That I'm sure you have always followed and will always follow if you're ever in that situation, Carole.
Okay. We're allowed a bit of kissing, a bit of touching, but not sleeping.
We're not joining the convent here. Yeah. You're absolutely allowed to do a variety of things. But what you don't want to do is assume if I sleep with this person, they will commit to me.
Yeah.
Is just the biggest fallacy out there.
Yeah.
You need to know. And people say, oh, no, but what, I don't know why they would commit to me if we hadn't had sex. Plenty of people don't have sex before marriage, whether you're horrified that or think it's the best thing ever. A huge number of people don't have sex before marriage. And interestingly, the vast majority of men who ever asked me to marry them, I hadn't slept with either. I can tell you, if you haven't slept with someone, they're more likely to want that commitment. They're more likely to want to get married. This is not about morals and ethics, no matter what your perspective is. You've got to make sure that the person is committed to you. And you actually do know. Yeah, it's rare that you don't know if you're in a committed relationship or not. You're not in a position to be jealous if they're dating other people and seeing other people, if you know that you're not in a committed relationship, or upset if you find out they're dating other people. You've got to be straightforward and honest and ask the question. People also say, oh, I've been dating for 9 months now. I've been seeing them. I think they're seeing other people. When should I bring up the topic of commitment? That should have happened 7 months ago. There is no excuse for dating beyond a couple of months. If you're seeing someone a number of times a week, you're planning what you're doing, you're planning where you're going to restaurants, you have to say at some point, can I just double check? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend here? And if you're frightened of asking the question, it's because you know the answer. And if you are asking the question and they are committed to you, they'll laugh and say, oh, darling, I can't believe you didn't know. Of course, you've met my parents, you've met my kids, we're planning a holiday in the summer. So if they are committed to you and if they are dating you, they'll think you're adorable for having asked the question. You're usually only fearful to ask because you already know the truth. You already know that you're not committed. You already know that they actually don't want to be with you. And if they don't want to be with you, that is your sign to move on. They're not going to change. Rare. Don't write to me all at once telling me that your partner changed their mind and you ended up together. Please. It happened. It sometimes happens that this is a kick up the backside. But sorry, if they don't know by this point that they want to be with you, you actually don't want to be with them.
Okay, you've been dating somebody for a while. You haven't had sex, but you've been kissing and a little bit of Hushfather. What happens if you're not sure how much you fancy them? So you're getting to that point where it could be, are they going to go into the friend zone or are they going to go further? Because liking somebody a huge amount and fancying them doesn't always go hand in hand. Much as you want to fancy them, if they're not, if it's not twiddling the right things in your head and going to have the, positive outcomes for you physically, it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Most of the stats seem to suggest that if you go on 3 dates with someone, the chances are that you're going to end up together. Not in all cases, but 3 seems to be the point where people are then able to establish more. I think the figure's probably pretty similar for Netflix series. By the time you get past the 3rd episode, you're pretty committed to watching the rest of it. When it comes to fancying or not fancying someone, this can vary depending on the person and depending on their comfort levels, how much they have to be attracted to someone. When it is the banging on the gong, oh my goodness, it's the lightning, the butterflies, this person's insanely incredible, I can't believe someone so gorgeous is speaking to me, never mind wanting to kiss me. Sometimes that's a bad sign because all you've got is lust. So that's just all the lust, the chemicals all going off. You kind of want an in-between. I would advise to my clients that if by the time you've gone on 4 or 5 dates, you really couldn't imagine yourself wanting to sleep with that person, I would say it's a no-go. This is female clients, by the way. Men know straight away if they want to sleep with someone or not. Men know straight away. That's it's not a question in their minds. For women, a number of things can happen. Either it can take longer, so you can take longer to establish this. And I know we talked about before how men and women can be friends, all of that, and 20 years later they end up in a relationship. The whole time the man wants to be with that woman, but that woman has just discovered how incredible he is and how fabulous he is. So men do sometimes hang on for a long time, hoping that one day the woman will realize there's something about him that's innately very attractive. And it is hard because you can't pick who you fall in love with. You can't pick who you're attracted to. And who we're attracted to is very unique to us. That attraction is not necessarily, a lot of people think it's the Brad Pitt or the skinny blonde woman with big boobs. It's usually not. Our attraction is nuanced. The girl in your school with green eyes who you just thought was the most incredible human being because she once gave you a hug when you bashed your knee. So therefore, green eyes just make you go wobbly at the knees for the rest of your life. Attraction is so unique. You can be attracted to someone because they were a brilliant father. You can be attracted to someone because they took care of their mother so well. The reasons for attraction are unique to all of us. But if there's not some type of attraction, you're forcing yourself to do something that you don't feel comfortable with. Of course, you could be asexual, in which case you do not have a sex drive. You could also be on medication that means you lose your sex drive. So that attraction really is, the sexual attraction, I should say, is not there. That doesn't mean that you can't have an incredible relationship without sex. Ask most married couples. They seem to do very well. So you don't need to have sexual attraction to be with someone. But if they have a high sex drive, you don't want to spend the rest of your life fending them off and coming up with excuses. It will lower their self-esteem. It will end up hurting both of you. If sex is important in the relationship, then you need to want to have sex with that person to maintain things longer term. Life can be tricky and hard enough. You don't want to have ongoing battles at bedtime.
Yeah. And hence, going back to your initial point, is why you are dating somebody for a significant amount of time before you're going to bed with them.
And one of the great things about continually having a positive message for the daters out there is that to be able to utilize this stuff. I got the best compliment ever yesterday when a client of ours at Drawing Down the Moon contacted their matchmaker to say they'd been listening to our podcast, Carole, and had learned so much from us talking together and giving advice. She utilized the information on the first date. She's about to go on a second. And this is what I want to hear. Yay. And whether or not you're dating through my company or you're taking the advice that we give here, that gives me a kick. It gives Carole a kick. And we know the advice works. We know the advice helps make a difference.
Absolutely. What about meeting friends and family? We're talking about the stages of dating. When is it normal for you to, you kind of excited, I want to introduce them to my mom or my dad, or, you obviously, you don't want to scare somebody away. Or what happens if you are invited to go and meet his family? I mean, that's quite a big deal, isn't it? That kind of tells you that you are being considered for a long-term relationship.
And again, this is an assumption that you shouldn't necessarily have. You're right. A reasonable, normal person would think, I've been introduced to the family. This is a shoo-in. I remember I was long-term dating a great guy when I was younger. And his mother told me that his brother, so we've got to get, the great guy I was dating had a brother. And this brother, she said, whether this is true or not, would invite woman after woman for Sunday lunch. And she was told, you've got to make a fuss of this woman and tell her how much you've heard about her. And week after week, a revolving door of women would turn up for Sunday lunch, and she would give them a hug and say how wonderful it was, how much she'd heard, and how great it was to meet them. This is the reality of dating. Now, not all mums, dads, caregivers are going to get on board with this kind of deception. Okay, not all parents are willing to lie for their child. But the point is, all of those women thought they were important to the man because they'd met the mum. Equally, if you haven't met the parents and there's no discussion of the parents and there's no mention of the parents and you can't understand why you've not met them, that's also a red flag. You've got to get the middle ground. You have to know, are we in a committed relationship? Is that what's going on here? And once you know, you don't have to worry about the signs. Isn't it so much easier to just have the conversation than to be sitting with your mates or your girlfriends or speaking to your siblings and saying, what do you think about this? And what does that mean? And does this mean what I think it means? We don't need to live our life in the murky waters of uncertainty because we can ask.
You make it sound so simple, and yet it's sometimes it's not.
If it was simple, I wouldn't have a job. If it was simple, I wouldn't have a career. But I do. And the great thing about it is every single day, people are going through this stuff where they're trying to work it out. And that makes it exciting. That makes it fun. You're trying to work out what's happening between us. Do they feel the same way? Do I feel this way? And it's all part of the exciting journey that leads you through the stages of love, that leads you through the stages of a relationship. And I'm here for that. And so are you. That's what we're doing. It's exciting.
What about meeting his or her children? How long into a relationship would you give until you invited somebody to meet your child, or that you'd like to meet their children?
Well, I'm going to start that by going in a slightly different direction. The most common thing we have when it comes to children in matchmaking and dating is that women primarily who do not have children will say, I don't want to meet a man who's got children. It's because, it's not all the women, but a good chunk, is because they think, I want the man I meet to go through this with me for the first time. I want them to get that positive pregnancy test with me for the first time. I want the baby pics for the first time. I want to gaze into his eyes as he looks at his firstborn child and says, this is life-changing. Or, my goodness, this was traumatic, never again, depending on the circumstance. But I want them to experience the joy of a child just with me. And it's not selfish to want that. It's not wrong to want that. But it makes it less likely that you are going to find the partner for you. It makes it less likely because you're getting rid of a huge number of people who are potentially highly compatible. And in dating and matchmaking, we want to get the broadest pool of people possible so you pick the right one for you. And the narrower and narrower and narrower you make your search, the less likely you'll fall in love and the longer it will take. And so what will end up happening is if you say, absolutely, it's a line in the sand, I do not want to date a man who's had children, you could end up dating for 5 years longer, 6 years longer, 8 years longer. That will have an impact on your fertility, on your ability to have a child. And you might well end up with a man who has children anyway. So for women who come in and say that to me, I have this conversation and I explain it. Now, a lot of the times when people have their love list, and of course, love is not a list, trademarked, is that we talk to them about it, and we talk about the fact that what they read when they were 18 in a magazine, or how they always thought it was going to be, is not necessarily the right route, because our job is to think about dating. Our job is to think about relationship success and getting the right introduction and finding love for you. That's not the job of the people that come to us. So they haven't put as much thought into this as we have. Equally, I've talked about women for a long time there, men. Men generally are extremely open to dating, marrying, being in a relationship with a woman who has children. Extremely open. It's not very common at all that a man will approach a matchmaker saying they can't have had children before. What is more likely is in fact, both parties do talk about this, but what's more likely, what is the relationship like with the father of the children? And it's really important to them that there's a good relationship, a resolved relationship. No one really wants to get into a relationship where there's a huge amount of backbiting, infighting. That's not to say that if you have an ex who is abusive or difficult or controlling, that you won't get into a relationship. But let the person know you first before you start talking about the difficult ex. You need them to be invested in you so they can then support you, rather than meeting a stranger, blurting out all of this stuff and they decide not to meet you again. To go back to your original question, although I'm sure you've got some questions in there already, but to go back to your original question, which is when to make the introduction to children. This has to be, I sometimes think it's age dependent. If you have a child who is 0 to 6, 7, 8, it doesn't really make a difference to them if you've got, if you're already bringing friends round for dinner, if you're already going out on excursions. They know that sometimes another daddy or mummy is there. They know that sometimes your friends they don't really have a concept of, in quotes, a special friend. They don't really have that concept. What I would say is, if you have younger children, there is less urgency to delay, but you do want to make sure that they're the right person for you before you introduce, because as we've talked about in another podcast, the dynamic of how your child interacts with that person can alter the relationship. And you really want to make sure, is this a person that I want to be with? Are we in a committed relationship? And once you're secure in that, you can then start to have more involvement with the child, more involvement with activities. If you're a single parent, it makes it a lot easier to have a child in the play park while you're sitting together talking than it does to always have a babysitter every time you want to go on a date. So when they're younger, it's easier, providing you're not, kissing the face off of them in front of your child. It's easier to have them there. But you also have to be very aware of the person's intentions. You don't want to be dating someone who's dating you because you're the single mother of a child. You want that to be an added factor. If they're older and they're more aware of friends coming and going and who they are and spending time, then I would definitely take a lot longer to introduce the child. Make sure that you're secure in the relationship, because any parent puts their child first, or does their very level best, or should be, to put their child first. And you've got to think of the emotions of that child if you were to split up. The relationship happiness is never a certainty. There's never a guarantee that it will last a long time. But particularly if you've come out of a divorce, or you've been widowed, or separated from a long-term partner, the child has already got, and I'm sure you are supporting them entirely, but the child's already had a period of uncertainty, a period of unhappiness, a period of adjustment. You don't want the child to carry on going through that if you can help it in your life. And none of us can forecast. We don't have the crystal ball, but try and take a little bit of time before saying, this is the person I'm dating, and you're going to see them more and they're going to be staying the night. And try to keep your child's life as balanced as possible while you're having the time of your life with the incredible person that you've just met and can't believe you didn't find 20 years ago, or life would be very different.
And I think also if they're, if you're in a good relationship and they're the right couple, they will be understanding whether they've had kids or not, understanding of how sensitive it is, or can, how sensitive it can be and how to play it and all that kind of thing. I was really fascinated by you saying that in general, females are more more. Sorry. I was fascinated by what you said, that in general men are not bothered by a woman having a child, and yet vice versa. Women tend to want to have, be in a relationship if they haven't had kids and have that first child with somebody. That's really interesting. I would never have. I don't know. Just maybe I just haven't thought about it before.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that they just want it to feel like it's new and not been done before.
Yeah, I get that. It's just that it's not an 100% vice versa.
Oh, it's definitely not. There is no sense at all, or very rare, from men that want the same thing. And what you have to, and people are really rigid about this. It is, our job is to open people's eyes to opportunity and to potential. It is so important that this is not one of your criteria. It will change your dating life when you drop this. I mean, what else would you say? It's really important to me that they've never had sex with anyone before. It's really important to me that they've never gone to a restaurant with someone before. It's really, this has to be a first experience with me. It's really important they haven't gone to Paris before, because that's always the thing that I wanted to do with a partner. And I get it. I get the sense of, I wanted to just be with me. But when you were, I can see your don't tell me this has happened to you. Do not tell me, Carole.
Tell you about, sorry, finish work,
impression time. So the ultimate thing with this is, yes, it would be lovely if they'd never been on the Venice Simpson Express before and it was just with you. But the experience that they have with you will be so totally unique, so totally different, that it will be, again, it harps back to what we just talked about. You cannot spend your life in a relationship focusing on the previous relationship. And especially if you would like a really big family. I can't imagine anything better if your aim was to have a really big family and you only end up having one, or you only end up having two, to meet a partner who's got 4. No, there's 6 of them. Phenomenal. I'm a big fan of kids. As far as I'm concerned, I would have loved 50 of them. I've got 1. So therefore, someone who comes along with a huge volume of kids, the more love, the better. And I don't think there should be a limit on these things. But, house sizes probably, and car size probably restricts that. What were you going to tell me? You were going to tell me.
I was going to tell you, a dear friend of mine, when she met her husband, and they were, second time around. He had a child from his previous marriage, who and he lived, the child lives with his mum. So this girlfriend of mine, they were looking, so they were going to buy, and they both worked, sort of work from home, so it didn't matter where they needed to live. So they decided that they would get a map of the UK and they would stick a pin, because they wanted to live somewhere where neither of them had ever slept with anybody before in their life.
No.
So they had this completely hilarious afternoon in front of this map, kind of, you stick out your initial 3 or 4 pins or whatever. And then he would sort of go, okay, Coventry. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, no, fine. I know we can be around Coventry. And then she said, sort of half an hour later, he'd suddenly go, oh, hang on. No, I've just remembered. Take that out of Coventry. And they ended up in, honestly, the back of Bond. I think it was kind of somewhere near Shrewsbury. I mean, and they stuck to it. I mean, they're both completely lost and completely made for each other. And they've been married for, I don't know, 15 years now. But it was just, and she said, and it wasn't, it wasn't, in a weird way, they had an absolute ball doing it. It was quite funny. But she just said it was this, it was these sort of, you're going back in your memory thinking, oh, do I admit to that one in Eastbourne or wherever?
I did not love this story more. And I am going to cut this little story out and I'm going to share it far and wide. Because it is a story that is everything that I aim for in every introduction I make, which is that they are open, they are loving, they are not an inkling of jealousy or envy or bitterness. Comparison is out the window. They know they have found the right person for them, and they know that person loves them so completely, so entirely. The totality of that person is loved and cared for by the other, to the extent that they can openly talk about past partners in a way that gives them joy, happiness, and a fun time, because they're secure in who they are, they're secure in their relationship, and they're building together. This story is perfection. And if more people were able to do what they did, we'd all be living in a happier world. And maybe the ultimate test, and I always remember a very good friend of mine who was very happily married, said to me when we were at university together, I think that you know that you are in love with someone and you're meant to be with them if you would eat their bogey.
Oh, stop it.
I will never forget. I will never forget.
I'm scared.
It is not as good a story as the one you've just told me. But the idea, we may have to cut it, but the idea that it's loving the idea behind it is you love the whole person. Clearly, and you used the man as the example, whether she, he, or both of them had an incredibly exciting dating, romantic, and sex life before they met. But it's saying to your partner, this is why this story is pure gold. It's saying to your partner, you've had intimate experiences. You've had them in a variety of locations, places, with different people at different events. I don't judge you for who you were, for who you are. I love you. And this is the rich tapestry of your life. I respect you. I love you. And it is real. It is actually taking you back to the type of love that you have for a child. It is that unconditional love for a partner. They can say things, they can do things, but they're a good human who has my best interests at heart. I love that story. It is the epitome of what we should be. I don't want to hear that people shouldn't be sleeping around. I want to hear what the story means. It's bigger than just putting a pin in a map. This is the definition of what we should be looking for: the openness, the honesty, the love, and knowing that the other person doesn't want to harm you, doesn't want to hurt you, and the feeling is mutual. I'm glad they're together. I love them. I want to meet them both. Promise me you'll introduce me.
Yeah, I will, Gillian, I will. Can I ask you one more question before we...
Yeah.
You've talked about saying I love you. When what's the earliest, or when is a good time to say I love you? And is it like a proposal? Does it tend to come from the man first? It can, tell me a little bit about saying I love you.
The I love you episode could be a whole episode, but let me try and summarize it as quickly as I can.
A little quickie.
A quickie in Coventry. So this is It could be the man first, could be the woman first. Nothing worse than saying thank you. Okay. That's what we all want to avoid. That's what we want to not be anywhere near. If someone tells you they love you,
thank you. You don't.
I love you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So you don't. Okay.
That's the worst thing that can happen. When you declare your love.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
And instead of saying, I love you too, they say,
thank you.
Okay. This is what we want to avoid. It could be the man that says it first, could be the woman that says it first. In general, you know if it's appropriate to say it, you're getting the feelings, you're feeling the feelings that things are happening. It depends on the person. You know, we generations ago, no one would have said it their lifetime. Some people say it 50 times a day. It depends on the person. When you say it, how appropriate it is. If they say thank you, you probably have a big hint. You're in a little bit of difficulty. Do not accept I love you from someone you've never met. Do not accept I love you from someone on the first date within an appropriate time frame, which could be a month, 2 months, a fortnight. You should know if you have that feeling. The being in love feeling is so unique, so different, so unexpected. I remember the first time I ever fell in love, I'd been off work for a fortnight and I came back to work and I remember one of my colleagues, 20 years older than me, turning around to me on the first day. I hadn't said anything, I hadn't done anything. I had a job that involved working on a computer and he looked to me and he said, "You've fallen in love." There was a transformation. And that's what being in love is. And I wish you and everyone the very best, that when you say, I love you, it's reciprocated, because that's what people are looking for when they're dating and trying to find the person for them.
Yeah. Hear, hear. But you've really made me laugh. Thank you. I mean, I don't know what happens if you say thank you by mistake. What happens if you're not expecting it and you go, thank you? I mean, you've really made me nervous now.
Okay, that's one to watch for. Yeah. You can always pick up later. You can always say, can I just say, when you said it earlier, I was taken aback. Again, communicate. Keep talking.
All right. Brilliant. Thanks, Gillian. Look forward to chatting again.
Thanks, Carole. See you soon.